Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Reporters Roundtable. We'll dive into the stories behind the stories as we sit down with the journalists who are shaping the narrative of Web3, blockchain, and the future of finance. From breaking news to in-depth investigations, these are the voices that bring clarity to the complex and ever-evolving world of crypto. We're here to explore not just the news they report on, but also their journey, insights, and what drives them to cover this revolutionary space. So guys, thank you so much for taking your time today to watch this episode. We're here with Sam Bourgi from Cointelegraph. Sam is a journalist at Cointelegraph covering all sorts of stories there. It's great to have him on today on the podcast. So we're going to be asking a few questions just to understand your journey, what you like covering, specifically things that excite you in crypto, and take it from there really. So I know that we've been speaking for a while now. You've been covering crypto at Cointelegraph for several years now. So just to understand, what has been your background, your journey, and how did you first fall into this rabbit hole of crypto?
Yeah, well, it's a bit of a long journey. I first came across this esoteric thing called Bitcoin back in 2011, 2012. And that's when I wrote my first article on the topic. At the time, it was all about the, dark web, Bitcoin facilitating crime, all that stuff. So I had covered it from that lens, not fully taking a deep dive then, because outside of the white paper and maybe the forums, there weren't a lot of positive coverage or positive spins on Bitcoin at the time. So that was my first kind of foray into Bitcoin, was back in 2011 or 2012, where I wrote my first article. But over the years, this topic of Bitcoin kept resurfacing, whether it was the MT Gox, whether it was, the cypherpunks, all these sorts of things. So I really began my really deep dive into the industry around 2015, 2016, before the previous ICO boom. And before I was at Cointelegraph, I was the chief editor of hack.com before it got repurposed into a different website. I joined CCN, started covering the entire economy behind crypto and Bitcoin. And at that point, I had become basically obsessed with Bitcoin. It's one of those things where I was thinking about it every day, learning more about it every day, investing every day, and obviously covering the market. So yeah, my first kind of foray is literally 13, 14 years ago. And little did I know that Bitcoin would become a multi-trillion-dollar asset class that is now being used by major corporations. It's on every government's radar, for good or for bad. So it's been a bit of a surreal experience going from covering this thing that was the domain of online libertarians and the cypherpunk community to now being a asset that's basically vying for competition on Wall Street. So that's kind of the genesis behind how I got to where I am now.
Great. Thank you so much for covering that. In fact, I think, you've been in the industry for so many years now, more than a decade, which is obviously, very ancient for people in this industry already.
Yeah.
And it seems that you've covered so many topics from the beginning, as you mentioned, from being obsessed with Bitcoin to tokenized asset markets, stable coins, AI integrations of crypto and finance. It seems that you also covered NFTs as well. Mm-hmm. So can you please tell us more about, your journey from covering Bitcoin to all these other narratives in crypto, and what was your interest, let's say, from the last bull run in 2021 until now?
Sure. Yeah. So I tried to look at the industry from my lens of expertise, which comes from, looking at macroeconomics and policy. So a lot of the stories that I kind of attack have been from that lens, looking at the economics of the crypto industry. And when I joined Cointelegraph, I was the business editor, really focusing on business stories. Because at the time, back in 2020, 2021, there weren't a lot of business-focused stories on the industry. It was mostly, price action, looking at the, different coins, the launches, which is all valid, but the business lens was kind of lacking. So I tried to come in and provide an insights from the business perspective and the economic perspective, and that's kind of what's guided me throughout, my writing journey with Cointelegraph and beyond. And every cycle has these new themes and these new narratives. The 2021 phase, the NFT boom was everything. Everyone was talking about NFTs, digital collectibles. In the cycle before that, if anyone remembers, it was the ICO boom, the initial coin offerings, and everything that spun out of that. Now what we're seeing is a huge pivot towards tokenization, real world assets, blockchain technology now being used on Wall Street. Stable coins are arguably the biggest use case of the technology beyond Bitcoin. I mean, you take a look at the regulation now, the Genius Act in the United States, everything is now pivoting towards stable coins or, fiat-based assets represented on the blockchain, and the role of that for payments, for, helping people in emerging markets who want access to dollars. So, always trying to keep a sense of, what the major trends are. And that requires, listening to the industry and listening to the developments. As a reporter, as a journalist, you have to be able to dissect what's happening and to understand its relevance and then to report that relevance. So, a lot of it is you got to, wait and see and analyze what are the major trends, and the themes are constantly shifting in this industry. And it seems like this cycle has been driven mainly again by Bitcoin and then by these emerging, real world asset tokenization and stablecoins.
Yeah, I mean, that's something really important as well, because I want to really nail down the role of journalists and journalism in this space in general, because you are talking about, covering specific narratives that are hot in each cycle. So, as we know in this space, there's a lot around hype and there's a lot around credibility as well. And there's always has to be that kind of like balance between both to get things moving. And we know in this space, especially in marketing for projects, especially even branding for projects, it's very much different from any Web 2 play. Whereas Web 2, I would say that a lot of it is specifically around paid, performance marketing and things like that, specifically for projects. Whereas in this space here, there's a lot to do between the balance from influencers, anonymous accounts, and KOLs. How would you say, what would be the role of journalists in this, market? How do they basically still play in shaping markets from your perspective and narratives per se?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, this really is a copycat industry in a lot of ways. Once a certain buzzword gains traction, everyone starts using it and they start applying that word to their project. And a few years ago, it was metaverse, it was Web3, NFT. So you do see it as a copycat industry in that sense. The challenge with crypto is it's still a show me what you got kind of industry. There's still we haven't really gone from the hype to the actual real world use cases. As a journalist, our goal is to really look at, okay, how do we separate the hype from the real story, right? So for me, words like revolutionize and seamless and groundbreaking and that stuff doesn't really work for me, because usually those are marketing words that don't really carry a lot of weight. I understand the role of a marketer using those words, but for me, it's okay, that's the claim, but does that hold up to scrutiny and to the reality? So a lot of the times when I'm looking at these stories, I do like to look at what's the actual impact of this particular project or this trend. Is there a monetary impact? Is there a revenue impact? Is this an economic footprint that we can kind of calculate, and is there a multiplier effect, whatever? We do like to see actual numbers to see what the use case really is. And really, there's really no formula for separating what's a good story from what's a hype story. Those are some buzzwords that I look for, but ultimately, we want to report on something that's tangible. And, we have a very close relationship with PR agencies, because the PR realm provides a lot of stories that come from the business world. When a crypto company is issuing a new product or a service or an acquisition, they're going to be channeling that through their PR agencies or through their marketing arm. And that's how a lot of times we get stories. We get those pitches. We have to evaluate whether there's actually a business story or an actual story behind the hype. So it's not a black and white thing. But my job is to use my discretion and to kind of see, okay, how does this impact our readers? Why would our readers want to learn about this? And that's kind of the fine line that we have to navigate there.
Yeah, I mean, going back to that point about you talking about specific projects, announcing specific news that you work with PR agencies on, some of them are huge sometimes. Some of them could be like massive partnerships or integrations, big fundraising announcements of like key investors. Do you feel the pressure from the community of projects when you cover something critical?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of pressure. There's a pressure to get it right as well, and sometimes the actual announcement doesn't provide enough information to justify the story. So a lot of times you have to kind of contextualize the story from the broader lens of what your audience actually is going to find useful in the story. But if I tell you how many PRs I get a day, that you wouldn't believe me. It's at Cointelegraph. I mean, we're number one, so it's an absolute deluge of pitches every day. And I appreciate it. I love it. I mean, it's always good to have stories. But when there's a major announcement, we have to kind of get our ducks in order to make sure that we have enough manpower to cover it. There's not enough people who can cover all the news releases that are coming down the pipeline. But yeah, I mean, anything related to a major acquisition, major funding announcement, integration, it's our job to cover, right? And so, given, for example, on the funding side, we receive so many, really interesting funding news. We can't possibly cover all of them in standalone articles. We just don't have the resources. No one has the resources to cover every single raise. So I've created this thing called VC Roundup, where every month I'll provide, the raises that kind of fell through the cracks that we didn't really cover as a standalone. We'll include it in this, broader kind of newsletter piece article that appears on Cointelegraph. That's just one example that we can try to kind of broaden our coverage and make sure that all the news, in this case funding, is well represented, or that people know about it.
Going back to that point you just mentioned, that like you guys get a deluge of pitches for your inbox per day. Can you give us a rough estimation of like how many do you get per day on average?
I'm one of the, how they say there's two people. There's a person who has, as little as 0 unreads in their inbox, and somebody who has 47,000. I'm the one who always likes to keep it at 0. I like to make sure I read everything and that I mark it off as unread, but that's become impossible at CT. So honestly, if I don't touch my email right now, by the end of the week, I'll probably have about 200 unread emails. And These are not spam. Like, these are 200s that address me as, "Hey Sam," "Hi Sam," people who are addressing me directly. So that's what I'm looking at between 150 to 200 like actual potential contacts, leads, stories, pitches, expert insights, all that stuff. Yeah, about 150 to 200 a week.
Wow.
So if I don't get back to you, if you're a PR person and I'm not getting back to you, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It's because I'm I'm trying to keep my head above water here. You know what I mean? Telegram is helpful for that. Telegram, I can be quicker, but Telegram has become like another email. I literally probably have 300 to 400 active chats in Telegram right now. That's the nature of the industry, and I think it kind of gives us a sense of, we're not really in a bear market yet, guys. I mean, there's a lot of companies building, and I have firsthand experience of what they're doing. Yeah.
Well, see, that's the thing, right? Let's go through kind of like the train of thought here, especially for people that are looking to pitch to you. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you get flooded with emails. We know that now. What makes a story stand out from the noise? And is there like anything specific that you look at in the subject of the email, like any buzzwords or red flags that you filter out straight away?
Yeah, so if somebody addresses me with the wrong name or just puts dear without me, I was like, for me, that's like, you know what? With all the deluge that I'm getting, that might be one I'm going to discard for now. I think over use of buzzwords, things like groundbreaking, revolutionary, seamless is one that sneaks in. Again, that doesn't mean I'm not going to cover it, but that one is, I kind of maybe flag for now. Ultimately, I'm looking for, I want to see numbers. I want to see the economic or the business impact of a particular story. I also want to see whether it's, are there any actual, big names in the industry that are integrating, partnering, etc. So I will look at, who the, pitch is coming from, what the company is doing, and whether there's actual numbers or data that can be used to support what they're pitching. But like I said, Kim, it's not a black and white thing. I mean, it's a gray area, so you have to evaluate every story. And I don't have a filter in my email that filters people out entirely. But things like I get a lot of expert insights, for example. People kind of commenting on the Genius Act. If you need it for a story, here it is. We are now working more to get more of those insights. So I'm trying to build up, my like a stable of experts that I can tap on a regular basis on things like legislation, the impact on the tokenization market, for example, the stablecoin market. Trying to line up these experts that I can talk to as soon as possible for unique insights, because a lot of our journalism is really pivoting towards getting those unique insights, getting that original content from the experts. So right now we're kind of refining that process, and I'm working to refine that process. We have a lot of contacts right now. I want to be able to kind of create a system where I can tap those people for a quick turnaround for stories. So that kind of is the next low hanging fruit that we're looking to kind of address.
Okay, great. Also, sorry, can you hear me still?
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Hold on. I think there's a bit of a. Okay, perfect. You can still hear me and everything. Okay, awesome. No, so I was saying that, like, going back to that point, because you just obviously mentioned right there, everything that you look at, the deluge of information and obviously the red flags and everything like that. Do you guys have anything at Cointelegraph, for example, like a Monday morning meeting where you guys talk about hot narratives and projects that you guys are looking to cover, or like anything that you guys think this would be great? So, for example, let's say in the morning, like Monday morning, like the hot topic at the moment is, for example, the Genius Act, right? Mm-hmm. So then, do you then prioritize those stories through your inbox? Like, how does that really work internally?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have daily huddles every morning. We're the news team. The way we work is we have several shifts. We have an Australian team, we have a European team, we have a North American team. Every morning, so we're a 24/7 news agency. Every morning we have a huddle where we talk about leads, major themes. We have policy writers who really focus on legislation and the way that bills flow through Congress. We, make sure that we're tracking potential news that's coming out through the week, whether it's hearings, whether it's events, whether it's conferences, or whether it's PR stories that are coming down the pipeline or I should say news stories from PR agencies that are coming down the pipeline that we have embargoes on. So yeah, we're constantly in communication to identify what the major themes are. We do that on a daily basis, not even on a weekly basis, because this industry is moving so quickly. So every single day we wake up and we have that huddle to try to see what's the hot kind of stories for the day and make sure that we have our finger on the pulse. And that changes on a daily basis. And we have our internal systems for, pitching stories, vetting them, etc.
Okay, great. So good to know that you guys have that internally. So to make sure you guys align with everything. What separates a good pitch from a bad pitch from your inbox? Can you just take us through like kind of like the subject line to like the body, and then obviously the information that should be disclosed for you?
The major lead should be in the actual subject line. I want to make sure that I know what the story is going to be about. For example, if there's a fundraise, I want to know that in the subject line. There's a major integration in the subject line. So a strong subject line is going to be really important, because that's going to make sure that we see it right away and we see the potential relevance. And then in the body, it's really good to get like a summary, like a too long TLDR of what the major impact is before the actual announcement is provided to us. Mm-hmm. So a very clear subject with a few bullet points or a couple of sentences that explain the potential impact, what it is, and then they can attach the story after that with all the information. And it's always helpful to always make sure that we have a direct line with the company. So if I have any follow-up questions, I can ask. So when I see a pitch, I really want to see that as well, that the person on the other line, whether it's the company that the PR agency represents, will be available for a Q&A. And I like to do a lot of the Q&A through written. That way, nothing gets lost in translation. That way, I can quote the person directly in quotes and everything like that, and I can understand that. Sometimes when it's done online, because I don't like to record calls. If I'm talking to someone, I don't record the calls. I want to make sure nothing is lost, right? So, being available for a Q&A is really important. But yeah, really clear subject. If there's numbers, if there's data, include that in the subject. And then a nice TLDR, maybe some bullet points, so we can kind of understand the relevance right away. And then the actual announcement can proceed from that.
Amazing. Well, that's really good tips for anyone that's trying to pitch you. Make sure the subject line is very clean from now on.
Yeah.
Going back to that point, actually, of your daily huddle and obviously things that you look at, from your perspective, is there like a one topic or one sector in crypto that you feel is underreported at the moment or misunderstood?
Ooh, underreported. That's an interesting one. I don't know if anything is getting underreported. Like, I'm really covering right now. My beats are still corporate news, corporate Bitcoin, corporate business news, funding news. RWAs, tokenization, stable coins. I think all of those are very well covered. I think maybe the payments aspect of crypto is maybe underreported these days, or maybe that could be because it's still not taking off as a payment vehicle outside of stable coins, right? So that's kind of why stablecoin industry has been very, very interesting, because it really began as a way to provide banking and funding for crypto traders who weren't able to access banking to trade. So it was an onboarding into cryptocurrency exchanges. But since then, it's emerged as a payment mechanism, and also as a way for people like, in emerging markets to get access to dollars, especially if you're suffering from hyperinflation or something like that. Stable coins are, people still want dollars. So I think maybe the payment aspect of crypto, because the original white paper was peer-to-peer, payment system, right? I think sometimes that is I don't know how to say if it's underreported, but it kind of takes the back seat to what we're seeing now as being the institutionalization of the asset class. In previous cycles, you had more of these hype drives through NFTs, et cetera, like that. So that might be one area that I think is going to see a lot more coverage moving forward, especially through the Genius Act and as stable coins continue to gain traction. So,
yeah, I mean, going to that point as well, with journalism in general, it seems that the way it works at Cointelegraph at the moment is that you guys have a managing editor, and then they're giving the news to you guys about these specific narratives to cover, and then you as a senior journalist go through everything, get approval from them to cover the story and so on as well. Now, that's a very structured process, obviously, within one of the biggest outlets in the world, which is Cointelegraph, or the biggest outlet in the world at the moment for crypto. What's your thoughts on the evolution of journalism to, for example, the rise of independent Substack journalists in the space?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, so I think we work, I think, like a regular newsroom. We have journalists, we have editors, we have managing editors, and we have like a chief editor. So all of our stories have to be approved by the editor on shift, but it's a very dynamic process. It's not really a top-down hierarchy. And to your point about Substack, our journalists have a very, very wide degree of freedom to pursue stories that they're interested in and that are relevant. So the journalists themselves, he or she, are constantly pitching stories to the broader team for vetting, for verification, and then for approval. So it's strongly encouraged that the actual journalists take the lead and pursue stories. That's how we operate. Yeah, when it comes to Substack and things, I think it's a fantastic way. I think journalism is moving towards more independence. I think like the traditional kind of newsroom is really going out the door. You're not really seeing it. You're seeing a lot of media companies struggle to remain relevant because of that. You have to be nimble. You have to be able to kind of not be so rigid. And I think independence is part of that. I think for us, our news team is very dynamic, so that I think that we kind of have the best of both worlds. We're still a news agency, but our journalists still have a significant degree of freedom. And yeah, I think when it comes to Substack and everything like that, I think when there's monetization opportunities for journalists to actually be supported with their work, where they can self-fund their work, I think that's fantastic. And I think that's probably where it's going. There's a lot more of that happening. At Cointelegraph, we also have a lot of contributors too. Not all of our work is done by our in-house team. We have contributors, we have op-ed writers, we have people who are providing thought leadership pieces, etc. So yeah, I think moving forward, I mean, the world of journalism is getting a lot harder. The business of journalism is getting a lot harder. And unfortunately, the way the Google algorithm works, a lot of the smaller players simply can't survive. I've experienced it personally. We were part of I was part of a very, very large, one of the largest for 2020 crypto news agencies, and we went under because the Google algorithm every single quarter would change the algorithm, would change the rules. You go from being number one or number two to literally losing 80-90% of your audience within a one update. Mm-hmm. So, and you can't talk to anyone at Google about the subject because nobody really knows. Mm-hmm. So it's a black box. Google's a black box, and what I'm getting at is that a lot of these smaller media outlets, they're really going to struggle because the business is changing, the economics of it is changing. And unfortunately, we're still beholden to Google. That's why you're seeing a lot of pivots towards multimedia, stronger social media presence, video, ad agencies, etc., that kind of support the entire, the news company. Because the world of journalism is changing, unfortunately. And if you can support yourself through Substack, that's fantastic.
So, I mean, do you think then the world of crypto media, for example, will be like institutionalized or like decentralized over the next 5 years based on what we're seeing? Because I'm seeing a lot of people pushing on decentralization of like media and information as well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's hard to say where the industry is going. I think the business of running a news agency has become a lot harder. The economics have become a lot harder. So I think going lean is going to be very, very important. And I think, going toward decentralization or having a team that maybe it's going to be based on more independent contractors, for example, might be the future, because it's not an easy industry to operate in. I mean, like Google ads and press, these things, the economic impact of these things aren't what they used to be, especially as the industry becomes more concentrated. So as somebody who's covering it, I want as many news outlets to thrive as possible. I think it's fantastic that we have competition. I want to see, various outlets competing, and I really wish them all the best, right? Unfortunately, the way of the industry is you're starting to see more consolidation because the business is a lot harder, just the way it is.
Yeah, I do agree upon that as well. Cool. I mean, last few questions, I think, because we got to time here. I mean, thank you so much for the feedback on that as well. That's very eye-opening. Because obviously I do believe in decentralization of media and news, and that's coming very, very soon. Personal questions here, based on, obviously more than a decade in the industry. Yeah. Is there one story or one headline that you love to write about before you retire?
Well, what's the quote? First they laugh at us, and then they, blah blah blah. Now we're selling to the institutions. Us retail are selling to the institutions. So for me, it's already been a pretty incredible writing that Bitcoin hits $100,000, for example. For me, I think it will really come full circle on the day where a central bank adds Bitcoin to their balance sheet. In whatever way it is, whether it's Bitcoin as a strategic asset, whether it's Bitcoin as part of their entire monetary policy strategy. But writing about the Fed or any central bank adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet, at that point, that's it, pack up. We've done it. There's nothing more. Where do you go from there? The people who issue the money.
Yeah.
The people who issue the money are now hoarding Bitcoin. I think it's going to happen at some point. And I hope I'm going to be around to write about that, because that's going to be one juicy headline. And I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so, right? Back in 2013, 2014, 2015, we were talking about this Bitcoin thing and we were getting laughed at. Well, now we've got over 1,000. How many? Like hundreds of companies now have over 1,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. We have ETFs. The most successful ETF launch of all time happens to be Bitcoin. And now one of the next dominoes is going to be nation states accumulating, and that could potentially be through central banks. So that's going to be one hell of a headline, and I'm going to be writing about that, hopefully. Maybe not this cycle, maybe next cycle.
Yeah. We support you on that, and I think you're right. It's coming very clear to that. But yeah, great, awesome. Well, Sam, I do appreciate your time on this. Before we go, can you tell the listeners today how to find you, where you're going to be in the next few months? Are you going to be at conferences? Anyone who wants to connect with you, how will they connect with you in general?
Fantastic. Yeah, you can read the articles on Cointelegraph.com under Sam Bourgi. I've been on a lot of the conferences lately. I'm very fortunate to attend as speaker and as moderator. I'm going to be in Portugal. I think it's in November for the Web Summit in Portugal in Lisbon, which is they're going to be their biggest one. Before that, I'm going to be at Futurist in Miami. Futurist is a conference, a blockchain futurist. It's based in Toronto, but they're going to be in Miami this year as well. So my November is looking pretty active. I got 2 conferences then. We'll see about Singapore. See if I can pull a rabbit out of my hat there. I don't know yet. But every few months you can catch me at the major conferences in the capacity as moderator usually. And those are the next ones coming up in November. So it'll be fun.
Question for the audience. Do you think that conferences are the best way to meet journalists?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think they're fantastic. They're a lot of fun. You get to meet people in the industry. For me, I get original content all the time from companies. I do a lot of interviews. Yeah, it's a great place to meet us and to maybe have us sit down for a story. So I was at Consensus earlier. Token 2049. Web Summit in Vancouver. We all got fantastic stories. So yeah, we're gonna if it's a tech conference, a crypto conference, we're gonna be there, and it'll be a great way for us to connect for sure.
Awesome, great. Well, I do appreciate your time on this today, Sam. It was really eye-opening for everyone that listened. And yeah, we'll probably catch you soon on the conferences then.
Absolutely, Kim. Thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sam. Bye.